Good day, Eduplex teachers. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you about the activities that I observed at your school. I was privileged to see some of you guys presenting these activities that was part of the training, and I must tell you it was such a positive experience because you guys really did what was trained, and it was so exciting to see how these activities and how the training actually became a reality and how you applied what was learned to the children. So well done. It was really well done. I am so happy in general about what I saw. There is, however, a few things that I'd like to bring under your attention that you must just maybe focus on and re-look. And I'm going to share this with you in the form of a report that I've written, which you guys will receive or have received already. And I'm going to read through this, and I hope that you guys can get something from this to apply in future. The first thing was, of course, the whole thing around outcomes. I think you guys briefed the outcomes very well with the children. You spoke to them and you said to them, this is what's going to happen, this is how we're going to do the activity, and there was a creative participation in that process. Some of you guys had the children sit down in circles on the ground. Some of you guys had the children stand in circles. But the fact of the matter is there was a proper briefing in the beginning. So the children knew what was going to happen and about the process. In some instances it didn't happen, but in most that did happen. What you guys must maybe just remember when you do the briefing of the outcomes, there's two types of outcomes or objectives that we must remember. The one is there's technical objective, that's how the activity is going to be done. The thing around, there's a plank and there's a rope, and this is what's going to happen with the plank and the rope, and the objective or the outcome around them. Then the other component was the activity outcomes, the learning outcomes that's going to take place. Whether it's communication, etc., etc. So in some instances you can brief that from the beginning, and you can inform the children that these are going to be the outcomes of the session, and you talk to them about these outcomes, and they know what to anticipate. The other one is to look at those outcomes at the end so that the children now reflect on it, and you ask them, what did you learn around this activity? What did you gather from this activity? Or if you have the outcomes in the beginning and you share that with them in the beginning, it will also be good to then look at the end and say, did we meet those objectives? Did you guys learn something about communication as we said in the beginning? So that was important. There are many outcomes that the teachers does not necessarily observe, small things which is also part of the outcomes, which is not necessarily some of these big outcomes. Cognitively, the problem solving, trying to make the activity work, how certain children sitting around it. Emotional part is to be accepted in the group. You saw a lot of times how children were so struggling to get part of the group and be heard, and that's also part of the outcomes, which we don't put on the main criteria, but it should be part of your outcomes as well. Receiving some praise for attempts, how does it feel in wanting to receive praise, and the support given, how much support did we give? That was part of the emotional part. And then the physical outcomes that is part of this is the balance activities, that was part of it, the movement and the stretching. So those are all objectives that we don't necessarily in the beginning see as things that we would like to accomplish, but it needs to be written down. It needs to be part of your outcomes. Then it was great when the teachers created excitement and anticipation with a briefing. A lot of times teachers sort of asked, so what is going to happen here? Who's going to win this activity? So they created some anticipation and excitement, and the children cheered. And I also saw that from the small ones to the bigger children, which is good. You want that anticipation, you want that energy, because that creates energy for the next activity. Teachers need to remember that learning experience is more than the physical activity. The walk to the area. When they walk across the street to where they are with you, there's things happening there. And we need to keep that in mind. That should be part of could be part of your outcomes in the process. The group dynamics in the process, how they share with each other, how they attend to each other, because something may happen on the way from the school to your activity, and that may influence the whole activity that you're going to present, because the child may have had a negative experience there. The group dynamics, when they return, you've done wonderful work at the activity. Now from the activity to the school, there's things happening there again, which could break down what you've learned, what you've taught them. So just keep that in mind. And the discipline, how much discipline was involved in the process, and also going back. The preparation of the activity and the closure of the activity. All these little things contribute to the outcomes, which normally, or a lot of times, were not part of your structuring of the outcomes in the beginning. Although it is understandable, handling 2 groups at once is a challenge, specifically with the smaller children. That I saw as a challenge. You've got 2 groups, you've briefed this group, they are starting with the activity, and now you are attending to the other group, and as you attend to that group, the other one, gets haywire, there's frustration and irritation, they start crying, the small ones now, and you have to attend to that. So that creates a little bit of a challenge. I know it's not easy to address that, but I just wanted to note that. With the bigger children, same thing happens when you attend for too long with one group. The one group could go haywire and off route of what they intend or what you intend them to do, but it's a reality. I just want to note that if it's in any way possible, of course, we could do with more hands in some instances. Teachers are reminded to draw close, to draw those that hangs at the back, which is not involved, into the program. A lot of times you see those children that hang at the back, they don't say a lot, they stay behind. They are intentionally not being part of the process because there's something wrong there. So I'm encouraging you to pull them in, talk to them, ask them, what do you think about this activity? How will you go about it? When there are too many children for the activity, let the learners come up with suggestions for different roles. So when the groups are big and everybody doesn't, for example, fit on the sled, which you can fit quite a lot on the sled. Remember, each child on the sled does not need to hold a rope. They can stand behind each other and hold on each other. But anyway, ask the children, what do you think? There's 4 people not part of this now. How can we involve them? So get their activity, get their creativity, stir them on in how they can go about it. Each child must feel connected to an activity, even if it's very insignificant. But they must feel part of the process. Groups should be divided in both male and female groups, as this teach them the politics of gender to cope with each in their gender. Groups should also be mixed in their boys-girls to interact healthily. So not only should there be boys groups and girls groups, because again, as I said, that teach them how to deal with the politics of a certain gender, but also mixed gender. So, and with another activity, the second activity, you can mix the group so that they experience the different gender roles and how children of a different gender execute and think and do their things. I loved it when some groups had issues and the teacher said, go sort out your issues, and when you've sorted out, come back to me. That taught them governance, it taught them responsibility. And it was really good to see. The teachers involved is so important. The teacher involvement is so important. The majority of teachers were involved with positive reinforcement. So the teachers were involved, they were engaged, they didn't stand back and let the children do their own thing. They were supportive. In some instances, a little bit too much. I'll get to that now. Just interesting then, the dancing is a very positive activity addressing both kinesthetic, visual, spatial, and social musical areas. So it was a very positive activity that happened in the background. So what was nice is as the children stood in the activity and the music was playing, they were also busy, dancing. Although it wasn't part of their activity, but they were dancing and doing the moves. It just shows you the positive influence of music and rhythm. So that was great to also observe. With the dancing, I can suggest maybe 4 ways on how we can do that. One is the group giving them a pre-worked out moves to the big group. So this group learning, they get moves and they need to do the moves everybody together. But there's other ways of doing this as well. Let them dance in smaller groups, coming to present it to the bigger groups. There's a little bit of component of independence where they have to do something on their own and then come back and present it in the big group. Let them come up with their own moves in smaller groups. There's creativity. So, the first two was where you give them a certain dance move and they have to go and do it. The third one is where they have to generate their own in groups. So they have to think about their own music. You can give them music or they can come up with their own music. You can plug it in and they have to come up with some creative moves themselves. And then the fourth one is give them the opportunity to dance on their own music. So you play the music and the children just dance on their own. So this is free dancing, this is individualism, to giving the children an opportunity to do their own thing and being observed by others. There you can get comments like, that's silly, that's stupid, wow, that's cool moves. And again, you can facilitate it from the side on how that happened. Then, in some instances, there were two groups. The one group would finish quickly and the other one was still struggling. This could create challenges, and in some instances it did. So the one group were busy, they did their thing, and then they sat, and then they waited. So there's a few ways on how we can get that space to fulfill. You can ask the group to do the activity again, and give them a challenge and tell them, you need to do this activity better now, quicker than you did the previous one, while waiting for the other group to finish. Let them come up with an alternative application of the activity. Ask them, okay, so how can you do this totally different? Or how can we use this activity totally different? Let them cheer each other on. So the group that's finished already, let them go to the group that's still busy and let them cheer them on and get their support in the process. Let them advise the others on a better or easier way to do the activity. Seeing that they've done it already, seeing that they have already been successful, let them teach the others on how, give them suggestions on how it could be done easier and better. Generating a document to fill in or ponder on as individuals can also help when the one group is still struggling with an activity. For example, word clues, crossword puzzles, some general knowledge questions. You can give them that sheet, or even mathematical challenges. Give them that sheet and say, while you guys are waiting for the group to finish, complete this, and then they have to look at this. You can let them do it in small groups of 2, so there's some interaction again on that. Although it is all group activities, teachers still ensure that individuals are praised and celebrated. Well done. It was group activities, but the teachers in general looked at the individuals and they made sure the individuals felt part of the process. In various instances, certain issues arose. There was not enough time to properly talk through these issues. Time is short, and if issues arise, we need to do something about it. We cannot just let them go. It is understandable, but it still needs to be dealt with in some instances. If there are regularly specific issues that crop up, teachers can dedicate a specific activity to such issues. So what happens if there's an issue that constantly happens? With each time the group is with you, these issues arise. Then structure an activity where the outcome is how to address that issue. And then you know that you will not have that issue again. So you can be creative in that way. Some children, emotions are much more fragile than others. Some children needs more dedication than others. Some children needs more focus individually than others. Now you can't waste your time by focusing only on them, but just be sensitive and attentive on those. This is why 2 personnel members per small group is ideal. Again, I know it's not always possible, but it is good if you can do that. Teachers need to be sensitive to body language. Repeated reinforcement or negative behavior from teammates towards an individual can create challenges in later situations, experiences, and life. A lot of times we hear a lot of negative chatter from each other, from the groups, and if we can do something about it, it's good. If we can talk into that situation at that stage, asking the child that made the negative comment, why are you saying that? What would be a better way of addressing that? You teach the child a different way of doing it. It could be good if teachers write a few pointers or lesson plans beforehand to ensure that the topic or outcome is aligned with the way the activity is briefed and reflected upon. Now this medium is so wonderful, we can have a lot of different applications for any activity. But it will be good if there's a little bit more planning, a little bit more structure on the outcome. Where am I heading with this? So that this is not repeated and duplicated, but that I know specifically, these are the questions I'm going to ask. This is the outcomes that I'd like to have, and getting to that way. Small children and competition is a challenge may be another way in the briefing. So a lot of times, when there's competition, children like it, but we need to also work a little bit around it. Sometimes it's not good. Competition was specific with the small ones. They freak out if they lose. They want to win. So again, it gives you an opportunity to facilitate that, but maybe we should, some activities not always have a competition component into it. Because the young ones get nasty with each other and get emotional and so on. Although competition is something the learners must be exposed to and it needs to be facilitated, it's something that needs to be closely monitored. Okay, so some children totally takes over, they steal the show, they go haywire, they talk a lot, they do make the initiatives and they take initiative. So these ones we have to give them the talking stick, or we have to mute them, and somebody that's silent, give them the talking stick and say, now you can speak, please speak. Otherwise, we have the constant thing of these learners taking over, and we don't want to see that. Teachers must consciously challenge groups and individuals. They must ensure that when they are pushing the bar, ask the group if they would like to try it again, but this time do it a little bit different. So constantly challenge, push the bar a little bit further. For example, if they are doing the activity from the one side to the other side, don't let them just come back and do it again. Ask them, can you do it quicker? Can you do it blindfolded? Can you do it the other way around, to make sure that the challenge level is up. Before suggesting what they can do, ask them to suggest what they think they can do. So a lot of times, we tell them, this is what you need to do. Maybe we should just say, what do you think should happen here? And when you do that, you give a situation where they have to think creatively and think for themselves. In reflection, use the fact that they chose it to do more difficult activity, and that they have to bear the consequences. So when they've chosen an activity or they've chosen a certain complexity, make sure that when they are finished with the activity, when you talk to them about it, reflect on that. The fact that choices have certain consequences. Yes, you were successful and you chose that activity, so well done. Yes, you did not succeed and it was your choice. So you cannot be angry at anybody else because it was your choice. So, it gives a good place to reflect on. When reflecting on activities, they must remember not to talk about what they have learned from it, but they should connect it on real life. Be cautious of the question, what did you learn? You think a little bit broadly about what can you take from this? What stood out for you? And then ask questions about certain things that happened. Is always good. And let them talk about examples of school, what happens in school. So for example, if there are conflict or communication issues, ask them, so what is similar in the school environment, or what is similar at home, so that they can reflect on that type of thing. When reflecting, wait longer periods. When you reflect and you ask reflection questions, don't, when it gets silent, come up with the answer yourself. With that silent, uncomfortable spot, there's nothing better for children to react in that spot. So, give it a little bit more time before you as a teacher would like to give the answer to the question. That sometimes is necessary. Also, important, when the group has difficulty, sit down right there and reflect there with them. So when the group struggles, yes, you can let them carry on with the struggle and see if they can sort it out. Or you call a time out, you sit right there and say, right guys, so what is the challenge here? How can we address it? How can we solve it? What do you suggest? Create a moment there to intervene. Come up with suggestions on how they can work. Talk about reviewing it, and even about the whole thing around criticism from others. How do we deal with criticism? Because a lot of times when there's two groups, the one group will shouting from the side, and how do we deal with that? Both the people criticizing and the ones that receive the criticism. When reflecting, ensure to talk about everything you have observed, because it's important to talk about those things. We need to make sure that that is part of the picture. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. Again, well done. I'm so pleased you guys really applied what was taught, and I'm happy with what I've seen. Good luck with the program. I think what is important is some of you are more comfortable with certain activities, and sometimes we need to share a little bit of the ideas. Sometimes it's good if you are connecting with each other and learn from each other, because some teachers are good in certain areas and some teachers are not that good in certain areas. So we need to get creative ideas from teachers, and we need to see how some teachers are presenting it, because some of you guys are really, really good. Some of you guys are good, but some of you guys are really, really good. So yeah, from my side, well done.